Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morren. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
This is the human side of the story, brought to you by the Game 7 Group. And we just heard a little while ago from our special guest, Rick Bowness, and being a bench boss for 38 years, from the head coaching, associate, and assistant positions, nobody knows teamwork like Rick Bowness does. And at the Game 7 Group, transforming individuals into cohesive groups allows every team the potential to achieve extraordinary results. Game 7 Group offers various services such as team building events, plus coaching and speaking engagements aimed at improving team dynamics, productivity, and overall performance. We all want to be able to succeed in the big moment. Check out the Game 7 Group website at game7group.com/NHL Wraparound to learn more. Right now, a special incentive offer awaits our podcast listeners. Take your team to the next step. The Game 7 Group will get you there. And now, with a little bit more on Rick Bowness, Neil, the floor is yours.
Well, I've known Rick Bowness, as I said, since 1982-83, when he was playing coach for the Sherbrooke team in the American Hockey League. But I just wanted to run through a little bit of a remarkable life, a remarkable career that this man has had in the National Hockey League. It's been a quiet career because, honestly, he's not somebody that goes into histrionics, and he's not John Tortorella, who's a good friend of both of ours, but he has a very distinguished career. He was born in Moncton, New Brunswick, way back in 1955. He played as a player. He was a right winger. He was drafted by the Atlanta team, not the Thrashers, but the Flames back in the 1975 amateur draft. He also played for Detroit Red Wings, St. Louis Blues, and the original Winnipeg Jets. He played there. He also served as a head coach for the original Jets. He served as head coach for the Boston Bruins, the Ottawa Senators, the New York Islanders, the Phoenix Coyotes, recently the Dallas Stars, and most recently the Winnipeg Jets. He had an associate coach position with the Vancouver Canucks and the Tampa Bay Lightning. His 2,726 games as a NHL head coach or assistant coach are the most by anyone in league history. It's amazing, really. The other part about Rick personally, NHL draft, as I said, was 1975, 26th overall to the Atlanta Flames. But he was also drafted in the WHA, the World Hockey Association, by Wayne Gretzky's team, or would-be team later on. In 1975, 62nd overall, he went to the Indianapolis Racers. So, and which is the team that Wayne Gretzky signed with and then was traded to the Edmonton Oilers, thereby how he became an Oiler. But Rick Bowness has had a remarkable life, a remarkable career, and boy, it's just a pleasure to talk to him, and he's had just such a great life.
Such a great interview that we had with him, also so personable, and you could almost see kind of the relief that, the head coaching piece of his life is now behind him, and he's got so much more to look forward to, and just a great guest that we had today. So my human side takes a little bit different path, and we're checking the calendar. May 31st, 1987 was the first time that a Stanley Cup final had actually extended to the last day in May. And the reason it did was a game that happened 3 days earlier on May 28th. The Oilers and the Flyers, Game 6 at the Philadelphia Spectrum, in what is still regarded as the loudest moment the Spectrum has ever had. And I was actually there working as a statistician for ESPN on the roof of the building alongside Mike Emmerich and Bill Clement. And to give a little bit of background on that series, the Flyers were down 3-1, went to Edmonton where the parade route was already set and the Oilers were going to finish this series in Game 5. And the Oilers got out to a 2-0 lead. And wouldn't you know it, the Flyers come back and they win the game 3-2. So now a lot of anticipation going on for game 6. Kate Smith, the video is brought out and they play it on the scoreboard in place of the national anthem singing God Bless America. Flyers are down 2-1 in the third period. And I get a call from the producer, Brian Cooper, and he says, "Hey, Vic, I want you to go down into the Oilers locker room and produce the post game if they win." And I'm like thinking, pretty cool. Stat guy going into the Stanley Cup winning locker room. Well, that never happened because Brian Propp tied the game on a power play goal with 6:56 left. And then just a $1:24 later, an errant clear by Yari Curry ended up in the wheelhouse for J.J. Daigneault, who stepped into one from the blue line and blew it past Grant Fuhr to put the Flyers ahead. And Neil, you've been in enough buildings where there is the usual cheer of the crowd, and then there's this pitch that goes up about 3 or 4 octaves when there's absolute delirium going on. And that's what it was like. And Clement took his headset off, turned to me, and just shook his head, because that press box upstairs was actually shaking from the roof of the Spectrum. That's how loud it was. But a lot of people don't remember the end of that game, because with 10 seconds left, Ron Hextall went to clear a puck, threw it up the ice. Mark Messier reached up, took it out of the air, put it on his stick, and skated in alone on Hextall, who had to make 2 saves before the final buzzer went off. So it was just an amazing finish. And just to top this off, Phil Collins was playing across the street that night at the Vet. And he said, "You know what? Before the game, I'm going to be out. My concert will be over by 10 o'clock. Well, yeah, he was about an hour off. And that was the same time that the hockey game let out. So there were about 100,000 delirious people in the parking lots at that sports complex. And it was about 2 hours before I could even bother moving my car to get back to the hotel. So just an amazing night that I will never forget, that took place 37 years ago.
I remember that Stanley Cup very well, but I don't remember it that well as you do, having been there. All I know is I wonder who I was even hoping for back then. I was with the Red Wings, and so I don't know. We probably assumed that the Oilers would win because they were so strong back then. But that's a great story.
And they did win in the 7th game.
Yeah, and I've been in the Spectrum when it was going bonkers, but not quite that bonkers. But anyway, I want to thank My Gray and Game 7 Group for their sponsorship of NHL Wraparound. Thanks to all of the listeners. And remember, the first episode in our 1990 Forever series commemorating the New York Rangers 1994 Stanley Cup Championship is live right now. And Glenn Healy and John Davidson are very entertaining, talking the regular season and a whole lot more. A lot of great stories, a lot of good laughs, a lot of nostalgia. So I'm sure you'll enjoy that. But for today, thank you. Don't forget to join us again next week for the next episode of NHL Wraparound.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.